Hi everyone and welcome to this week's WARNO Dev Blog. This one is titled A More Realistic Combat System. Hello, they say. As we are nearing the end of the year and the start of a wonderful new one, we have some exciting WARNO news to share with you. As you know, we are busy working on the next milestone of our game, Uduno. Now this is not the only thing that's being cooked up in Eugen's kitchen. Recently our attention has been steered toward a major overhaul of how combat works within WARNO. In today's dev blog, we can go into more detail. Now, I would like to point out before we get started that everything here is Eugen's words. None of it is mine. My opinions will not be shared here, and I'm sure everyone will have opinions on both sides of this. Please do be respectful when you share them, especially if it's in my comments section. I would hate to ban people. However, let's get on with it. So, working hard behind the scenes is the next subheading. Every day, Eugen team works hard to make WARNO the best possible game. This takes time, effort and resources, and we listen carefully to what our community has to say and hear your pleas for new content loud and clear. Creating new features or mechanics for WARNO needs time, and as a living project, developing new systems or updating old ones might suck up even more time. Be patient please, lots of exciting things are coming WARNO's way. The more realistic combat system is a major overhaul. It affects not only the current state of the game but also the upcoming Uduno milestone. We need to ensure that everything is aligned, tested, bug fixed and working properly. That is one reason Uduno is taking longer, as we want to make sure it meshes well with the new system. So what can you expect? So the next subheading is a more realistic combat system. Looking at combat in WARNO in its current form, we weren't satisfied with the binary aspect of what happens when two units engage each other. The outcome is always the same, either one or the other gets destroyed. Suppression, resistance to it, and the management of units in combat feel too trivial and fleeting. We want to anchor suppression in the heart of combat to emphasize the role it plays on the battlefield. We want to offer more variety when two units meet and be more realistic in the process. Combat should also offer the opportunity to break a unit's morale instead of just beating the unit to death, rinse and repeat. Routing a unit should be as much a valid outcome as a complete destruction. A fresh approach, a more realistic combat system, would offer several benefits over the old format. It would make combat more realistic and WARNO as a whole more authentic. It gives the player a larger margin of error during combat. This allows them to recover units, not simply lose them, and also an increase in the unit's time to kill ratio, the TTK, thus lowering micromanagement and the game's overall pace. So the combat system overhaul in detail is the next heading. So we went designing, and we are still working on new systems, so we can't give you an exact release date yet. But we can show you how future combat in WARNO will play out. Let's go through each new element. Updating suppression and its effects. In the current or old format, suppression occurs with hits and near misses, but only with HE weapons and munitions, and at minimal level with AP and heat ammunition. We decided to add more heft to the suppression mechanic across the board, especially the latter types of weapons. This means that the overhaul, each weapon in the game will still deal suppression, even if the shot is a hit or a miss. The level of suppression depends on the ammunition's type and caliber, but it will be more than in its original form. For instance, one consequence will be that near misses of AP munitions will directly affect tightly grouped tanks, suppressing several of them if they are packed too close. Better not to rely too much on these armoured blobs, Commander. Of course, depending on the community's feedback, we will refine and tweak the amount of suppression. Combat experience, a unit's ability to endure. Resistance to suppression will be one pillar of a unit's experience level. The new system will increase this importance. Veterancy level will influence a unit's resilience to suppression in various ways. Better resistance to suppression received thanks to a shield variable. Faster regeneration to a normal state after suppression received. Better resilience to casualties, for instance the survivors receive extra suppression if a soldier gets killed in a squad. Veteran and elite soldiers, combat hardened as they are, will be less affected. The more experienced a unit, the slower it will suffer from suppression and the less affected it will be when receiving damage, and the quicker it will return to a neutral state. The next subheading is new unit traits. We haven't yet finished. A new combat system will also include new features, and we will add traits to units. Still, Division 2 fans may recognise how a similar variant of this system exists in the World War II cousin of WARNO. When the patch comes, it will introduce unit traits, which will look something like this. Special Forces, these are the most experienced units and receive a bonus to combat situations, up and above the elite Veterancy experience level. This means that infantry units with this trait will enjoy even more resilience to suppression, increased movement and faster rates of fire. The next type is Shock, and these troops will have the ability to inflict additional suppression on their targets in close quarter combat such as urban terrain and woods. This represents the greater emphasis on close combat, including hand-to-hand fighting. Paratroopers and assault engineers will be priority candidates for such a trait. IFV infantry, soldiers riding into battle with infantry fighting vehicles, will also get an extra suppression resilience bonus, but only as long as they are fighting next to an IFV. These half squads are pretty small, i.e. the American Bradley fire teams, and doctrine dictates they fight dismounted and in close coordination with the vehicle that brought them onto the battlefield. They receive a bonus if they stick close to the IFV. It doesn't have to be their own IFV, by the way. Other traits. We have several other traits in the pipeline, which we hope to talk about in more detail in the near future. These include Leader, Military Police, GSR, Indoctrinated, and more. So a little bit of an aside, just because the pictures here. This picture appears to show the Green Berets leader with the new little icons, and it appears to have more than one. So in Wargame Red Dragon, each unit only had one attached to them, but obviously Steel Division 2, they had more than one, and here I'm assuming they can have more than one. Moving on, the list continues is the next heading. We are not done yet. You can expect a couple more changes. Improving suppression display. We are adding a hit point gauge on the unit label to better display the difference between suppression and physical damage. This will help players see the state of their units at a glance without having to open up the unit's information panel. The suppression gauge will come with a colouring system letting you know when the time has come to really move your unit out of harm's way. There is a command unit change is the next subheading. We will also introduce a major change to how command units work. After the patch, command units don't have to remain in a capture zone once they have captured it. This change stems from our feeling that the old Wargame Red Dragon mechanic led to too many cheesy tactics, including the infamous CV sniping. In our experience, this is detrimental to the game. By not having a command unit remain in the command zone, we aim to improve the game by simplifying in-game rules, removing all micromanagement related to watching over or moving units from command zones far behind the front line, allowing more aggressive plays with command units, with players using them as a true leader unit, boosting the experience level of friendly units in battle. Giving the command helicopters, those often overlooked units, a second life. They could be used to quickly capture zones and then move away again. And the final subheading is before we bid goodbye, so all the above changes are in the works. Most of them completed. They still require additional testing before we are ready to release them into the wild though. The changes are also directly affecting the Udino milestone, all need to be in the best state possible before we can share them with you. So we don't have a launch date yet and we ask you to remain patient for a bit longer. Now the above changes might result in some lively discussion, but keep it civil and play it calm, cool and collected. We sincerely believe these will make for a better Warno and a more fun experience for all players, whether new or veteran. Talk in peace and leave the actual fighting for the Warno Battlefields commander. And they close out with their usual see you on the battlefield. I'm going to leave it there for this week. You may discuss at your discretion. Please do keep it civil.